So what's the real point of a spiritual life? I mean, not some far-off promise for the next world, but what can you actually get out of it right here, right now? It's a question a lot of us have, and believe it or not, it's at the very heart of this incredible ancient story about a powerful king who is desperately searching for peace. So picture this. It's a beautiful, clear, moonlit night, and we meet this king, King Ajatasattu. Now, this guy has everything you could possibly want. Power, incredible wealth, a whole kingdom at his command. But despite all of that, he's a wreck. His mind is in total turmoil. The man just cannot find a moment's peace. And so he turns to his ministers with this really desperate question. He basically asks, who can we go see tonight? Who out there can actually shed some light on this and bring some peace to my mind? You see, he's not looking for some fancy philosophical debate or abstract theories. He needs something, or someone, to quiet the storm inside his head. You can just feel the urgency in his voice. Now, what's the source of all this torment? Well, this is where the story gets really intense. This isn't just some vague existential angst. King Ajatasattu is haunted by a terrible secret. He murdered his own father, a good and righteous king, just to take the throne. That immense guilt, it's a shadow that follows him everywhere, even on the most beautiful nights. So when he finally gets an audience with a teacher, the Buddha, he asks this very practical, almost skeptical question. He says, look, I see craftsmen all around me. Weavers, potters, soldiers. I can see the fruits of their labor. They make things, they earn a living, they support their families. It's all visible right here and now. So he asks, what are the visible fruits of your life, the contemplative life? Show me the results. But, the Buddha wasn't his first stop on this journey. Oh no, the king had already been to see 6 other very famous teachers of his day, and every single time he'd walked away feeling even more frustrated than before. And it's really easy to see why he was so frustrated. One teacher told him that good and evil don't even exist, which is not super helpful when you're drowning in guilt. Another said everything is just determined by fate, so you have no free will. A third basically offered him nothing but annihilation at death, and another one just dodged the question completely. None of them actually addressed his very direct, practical problem. The king had this brilliant way of describing his frustration. He said it was like asking someone about a mango, and they start describing a breadfruit. The answers were just completely irrelevant to what he was asking. He wanted something specific, and they were all talking about something else entirely. So, how does the Buddha respond to this very practical king? Well, instead of jumping into some complex philosophy, he starts with something incredibly simple and tangible, something the king could see and understand immediately. He poses a scenario. He says, imagine one of your own slaves, a man with absolutely no freedom, who only lives to serve you. What if that man decided to become a monk? And the king replies that, of course, he wouldn't force him back into slavery. In fact, he says he would be the one to bow down, show respect, and even offer gifts to that former slave. And boom, that's the first point, and it's brilliant. The very first fruit of a contemplative life, visible right here and now, is freedom. It's dignity. It is a complete transformation of your place in the world, from being someone's property to being revered even by a king. That's a real, social, observable benefit. Okay, so once the king gets this first tangible fruit, the Buddha then explains that there are even higher fruits, more sublime benefits. But these, he says, come from a structured path of training the mind. And the path is laid out in 3 stages. It all starts with virtue, which is the ethical foundation for a blameless life. That leads to the second stage, concentration, where you train the mind to become steady and calm. And finally, with a concentrated mind, you can develop wisdom, a direct, clear insight into the nature of reality. To describe these inner states, the Buddha uses these absolutely beautiful similes. The first stage of deep concentration, he says it's like a secluded lake with no water coming in from the outside. Instead, a spring of cool water just wells up from deep within, filling the entire lake with peace and composure. It comes from the inside. As the training gets deeper, the state becomes even more refined. Now it's described as a quiet, blissful pleasure. Kind of like a lotus that's growing completely underwater, totally permeated and saturated with cool water from its very roots all the way to the tips of its petals. It's a state of total calm saturation. The final stage of this concentration is one of profound stillness and purity. And the image here is so powerful, it's like a person sitting down. completely enveloped from head to toe in a clean white cloth. There isn't a single part of them left uncovered by this pure, bright awareness. Now, with a mind that is this calm and clear, you can finally see reality just as it is. The Buddha compares it to holding up a polished, crystal-clear gem that has a colored thread running through it. You can see the gem, and you can see the thread, and you understand their exact relationship. In the same way, you see the body and consciousness, and you understand their connection with perfect clarity. And this clarity of vision, well, it leads to the final and most profound fruit of the entire path. This is the ultimate goal of the whole contemplative life. The ultimate fruit is liberation. The mind is finally released from all the text calls them fermentations, which are those deep-seated patterns of greed, hatred, and ignorance that cause all our suffering. It is the end of all mental anguish. The person who achieves this state, they declare with absolute certainty that the task is complete. There is this sense of profound finality and peace in these words. It's a complete fulfillment. An end to that restless search that drove King Ajatasattu in the first place. As you can imagine, King Ajatasattu is completely won over by this magnificent explanation. But the story doesn't just end there. It has this really poignant and kind of bittersweet conclusion. Overwhelmed by everything he's heard, the king finally confesses the terrible crime that has been tormenting him this whole time. He acknowledges his foolishness, the horror of what he did, and he asks the Buddha to accept his confession so he can practice restraint in the future. And here is the tragic twist. After the king leaves, the Buddha turns to his monks, and he reveals something heartbreaking. He says that the king was so close, so ready to understand the ultimate truth. Had it not been for the heavy weight of his crime, he would have achieved a profound state of insight, right there as he sat listening. And so, we're left with this powerful story. It starts with the king asking a really practical question about the value of a spiritual life. And it ends with the tragic realization of how our own actions can become the biggest barrier to finding the very peace we're looking for. It kind of turns the king's question back on all of us, doesn't it? What are the true fruits of a life well lived, and what might be standing in our own way of realizing them?